Who is Russ Rapp? What's my motivation? Why am I saying or doing the things that I'm doing or saying? In this video, I'm going to pull back the curtain on the man who calls himself Russ Rapp, and I'm going to refer to myself in the first person. But I want to get into why I make these YouTube videos about non-duality and the strategies and the techniques I use, and at the end of the video, I'm going to share why this matters to you and give you some meaning to hopefully help you along your path or non-path of non-duality. Well, let's get into it. Who is Russ Rapp? It's me, this person sitting here in a chair in a park, surrounded by a few mosquitoes. It's a beautiful day, the weather's great. That's about it. But seriously, you know, in starting my intro for this video, I probably did about 10 to 12 takes, and for this portion, maybe 6 before I decided, hey, let's just keep rolling. So this is the one we're gonna keep rolling, whether I screw up or not, or whether I make sense or say what I wanna say. But that's what I wanna get into is me as a person. I'm not perfect. You know, I'm not gonna say exactly the right things. And that's really the key to my message is, well, let me back up. So how do you define a person? You can define them in many different ways. You know, I think when you talk about non-duality, many people want to gloss over the story, even though as humans, we really connect with stories. And so when you talk about your life or talk about where you've come, your path, where you're going, it's kind of seen as kind of frowned upon when it comes to non-duality, because you're not your story. You're literally this moment in time, which is not really a moment. But I guess if you could kind of define who I am, I'm kind of on the cusp between introverted and extroverted. You know, sometimes I want to make these videos because I have in my head things I want to say, and then I sit down and it doesn't quite go how I planned. And it always sounds better than in my head. And I don't always necessarily want to come and make these videos because it takes a little bit of focus, a little bit of energy behind them. Once I get rolling, it feels better. But, you know, sometimes I think that when you talk about non-duality, people want to perceive some perfect person, some guru that really shapes the message in a really coherent way, that, you know, stares deeply into the camera and appears to be at peace. But, you know, when it comes to non-duality, it's really nothing about you specifically, or that person, or me for that matter. But to talk a little bit about me more specifically, because that's one of the things that I don't like doing, is talking about myself. So that's part of the reason why I like talking about non-duality, because I don't really have to get into my personal life too much. But maybe that's why I don't have that many followers, who knows. But I would say on the Enneagram, if you know what the Enneagram, it's 9 personality types. I originally, when I got into it in college, typed myself as a 4, I think, with a 3 wing, which is kind of the, I won't get into it. Look up the Enneagram. I won't get into the numbers in this video. But then after a period of time, I realized I was actually a 5, because the 5's the investigator, it's the thinker. I didn't necessarily see myself as kind of the scientific thinker, but I saw myself as more of the artistic person. But I definitely lead with my thoughts and my thinking more than anything, which I think is why a lot of people get into non-duality, because they want to conceptualize reality, want to understand, they want to have wisdom as to what this world is all about, why we're here, and that sort of thing. And so we all come from typically a conceptual process when it comes to non-duality. But really, what you believe, what you think about non-duality doesn't really matter. And so that's one thing about my life. I guess I went to college for communications marketing. I do sales right now. You know, am I good at sales? I don't know. But with that, you know, I learned a lot of things about how people communicate and that sort of thing. And one of the pieces to really having a brand, or really understanding who you are, is to understand how people relate to you naturally. And so, knowing yourself can really help people connect with you, because you come across as a genuine person. And for me, if you get into some of the kind of marketing archetypes that exist, I would say I fall into the kind of regular guy archetype, where I am who I am. I'm not some fantastic guru that sits on a hill and ponders every day. I have a regular life, family. I have 3 kids, 2 grandkids, with 2 twins on the way. So I'm gonna have 4 grandkids. And from the outside looking in, as regular as can be, I've always felt different. I've always thought differently than other people. I've talked a little bit about this in other videos, but really, I think wherever I am, even if I'm surrounded by people that I agree with in certain respects, in certain ways, I oftentimes feel a little bit like an alien, if that's the right way of saying it, where I don't always ever quite fit anywhere. That's why I think I'm drawn to places like this, places off the beaten path, nature, just kind of places where you can kind of get away and just be at peace with everything around you. And the other thing is, I sneeze. Yes, even non-dual gurus can sneeze. But I think, what else can I say about myself? Back into the archetypes, I just wanted to mention one other YouTuber that talks about non-duality that I really like, because she falls, I would say, kind of more into the classification of a little bit of a rebel archetype, May Sophia. So check out her YouTube channel. I'll put a link below. May Sophia. She's, I think, a few times kind of quit because she calls it BS, which in a sense is true. But that's where I think, sometimes when you watch videos of people and, they talk intelligently, talk straight to the camera, talk in a certain cadence, in a certain rhythm. Let me back this up because I'm getting the sun in my eyes. All right, so they talk in a certain rhythm, and I think there's a style to that because, as humans, when we listen to sound, depending on how quickly the cadence of the speech is, the rate of the words that are coming to your mouth has a different perspective. So anytime you're doing meditation or things like that, you want to speak in a certain rhythm, a slower pace, so that I have someone watching me right now from walking on the train tracks. But you have a certain rhythm that will slow down the thinking, slow down the metabolic heart rate and everything. And the reason for that is because then you can, have a sense of peace and calm and that sort of thing. So that's where a lot of speakers will speak in those tones. But that's where I like people like May Sophia, where she speaks in an agitated way sometimes. She smokes and does other things that maybe people would think, how could someone that's non-dual do these types of things? And that's why I think she's effective, because, there's certain, when you see speakers, you come with your own ideology, your own perception, your own conceptual baggage, if you will. And so really you're looking at it from your own framework, the tinted glass, if you will, what is that? The other analogy of the mirror, but thinking of a Fiona Apple song. No, it is a window. Anyway. So how can a non-dual person get off track and start thinking and really start, not making sense, and why is this person rambling? What's my motivation? Why am I saying or doing the things that I'm doing or saying? That's my humor too. It's a little dry and it's a little silly, but that's what makes me laugh. And that line is actually from a Community episode, if you haven't figured that one out. But that's where, I feel like if I were to make a polished video, which I try to make something that adds value, and so you can maybe glean something from this. But if you're coming from a perspective of, I want to watch this Russ Rapp person, and I want to learn something, and I want to see them as being some sort of enlightened being or non-dual master or someone that has it all figured out, you're coming from the wrong direction. And that's where, initially wanted to make these videos, I wanted to make them a lot more concise, kind of like other videos make them, where there's a lot more, frills and everything as far as like video, and make it really concise, because a lot of the non-dual videos I was watching were 2-hour-long videos where they just kind of go on and on about the same thing, and that was kind of the overall technique I think is being used. So I wanted to do something different. And what ends up happening for me, I have my own life, I have things going on. At this point in time, I don't have the motivation to make really complex videos that are really concise and get to the point. And so I end up making a rambling video, much like other non-dual speakers, which is fine. But I'm just kind of pulling back and just showing you there is thought put into it. There is thought putting into presentation, and all the speakers that you maybe potentially listen to probably have a mindset as to where, as to how they're shaping their words. A lot of times they'll say the same phrases over and over again, tell the same stories, because you can still glean wisdom whether you've heard something 10 times, and maybe finally you'll have that aha moment when you've heard it for the 10th time to say, oh, now I get what they're saying, or you're in a different space in your life, and you're like, oh, I heard that analogy, I heard that metaphor, now it makes sense to me. But a lot of times it's just any sort of communication, you're training how you're saying something, you're presenting something over and over again, just like anything that you practice. And the more you say something, the more you can get effective in how you're saying it. So I'm sure you can watch other YouTube videos of being a better public speaker. And part of the reason why I wanted to get into communications is because I was probably never a great communicator, because I always have these big ideas and thoughts going on that I try to relay to others, and I maybe fall short, and that's why I like to write, because you can have more control over the communication. And so what is all this? I think I shared a little bit about who I am. If you have any other questions, leave a comment below, because that was the other thing, like, why do I make these videos? Because I like talking about it, I like connecting with people that are like-minded, that think about these things, and I want to help people that maybe fell into the same trap that the mind always plays, but in regards to non-duality, and the trap being that you think you have to do something, you think you have to become something in order to become non-dual. So the pressure to become this non-dual entity that lets everything flow and everything is what is, and be at peace at that becomes even more of a standard set to try to achieve, another bar that's raised infinitely up. Well, you'll never reach it, because you'll never be non-dual in the sense that you're trying to achieve it. Because in this moment, it doesn't need you to be non-dual. It doesn't matter if the speaker you listen to is perfectly at peace, because there's other people having the exact same experience right now that you're having, whether it's pain, whether anger, anxiety, dread, lack of motivation, whatever relationships that you're struggling with, everyone's going through that. And so if you're trying to approach non-duality from the stance that you want to get rid of all that, that's kind of the opposite direction that really non-duality is pointing to. The direction is to deal with the mosquitoes as they come. Well, oh my God, he killed a mosquito. Oh, I didn't kill the mosquito. No mosquitoes were harmed in the making of this video. But, God forbid that I would have slapped that mosquito that was flying by my face. There goes my non-duality card. It's been revoked. So, when it comes to going in the right direction of where non-duality is pointing, it's really accepting the moments that you're in. And when you have that thought, I'm trapped in this moment, I'm trapped in this feeling, I'm trapped in this thought, there's always a reflection of non-duality in that moment. There's always another way. There's always a back door that can take you to the freedom that exists in every moment, in all things. And if you feel caught up, whether or not things change, or you feel less of that, or it stays the same, the cliche is this too shall pass. And the reason why it passes is because what you're experiencing, in a sense, is not real, because it's a definition of a moment, and that moment is always changing. And so the infinity of non-duality is underlying all of that. And the mind wants to make non-duality something. And so it tries to claim this moment. It tries to say that this is what non-duality is. And then you're kind of missing the mark. And I used an analogy in one of my replies to a comment here a few days ago, where, what does it mean to be, what's aliveness? What does it mean to be alive? The moment we decide to be alive, we decide to die. And so aliveness is infinite. And it's kind of like we're sitting on a beach, and there's sand on the beach. It's a sandy beach. We start making a sandcastle and making it our own domain, our own castle. This is who I am. This is my identity, my separate self. All of a sudden, the tide comes in, the ocean waves crash into your sandcastle and destroy it. Now it's level. Now it's just sand again, and you get disappointed. You're like, well, I want to make that again. So you start making the sandcastle, and a little bit later, the ocean waves come in and destroy that again. And so what the mind does, essentially, it wants to continually make a sandcastle image of you over and over again, even though it continuously gets destroyed by the ocean waves. And so who are you? Are you that sandcastle that the mind's trying to build? Are you the sand? I would say you're both the sand and the ocean. You're both the destroyer and the manifest. You're all of that. And so whether the sandcastle stands or not, in the big scheme of things, that's not who you are. And that is who you are. Because I am me, I am free. So it's okay to identify with yourself. It's okay to refer to yourself in the first person. So, who is Russ Rapp? Who is John Galt? I am you. You are me. You want to say it that way? Am I this tree? So, my full name is Russell, and I was called Rusty up through 6th grade. And my parents said, if you don't want to be called Russ anymore, you got to change your name. So a lot of the people that know me when I was younger maybe still call me Rusty. Not so much anymore, but at some point I didn't like the name Russ Rapp at first because it's too quick, Russ Rapp. But, it's not always about what you think that matters. It's how others perceive you when it comes to that. There's a book, I'll put it in the comments as well, How the World Sees You by Sally something or other. Oh my gosh, he's not non-dual, he keeps waving at mosquitoes. But, how people perceive you is just as important as how you perceive yourself, and understanding that. Because if you're so inner focused and focused on who you are, then a lot of times you can disconnect yourself from the outside world and in a sense, be so enraptured on your own path, your own journey, that you forget that it's a journey in connection with everyone else's journeys. We're all in this together, with that cliche statement. So we're close to 20 minutes, so I'm gonna wrap this up. But I hope, let me know what you learned. Ask me if you have any other questions, ask me in the comments. And until next time,